I'm going to teach you how to use a percent bar model when you're finding a whole, when you're given a part and a percent in a word problem. So here's our word problem in our percent bar model. First thing you have to do is read the problem. Mr. Jeffrey had 8 students that scored lower than 80 on their test. This is 40% of the class. How many students are in his class? First things first, we need to identify some things from this problem. We need to identify our part, our whole, our percent, and our percent total. All right, now our percent total is always going to be 100 because percents are always out of 100, okay? Now next, we need to find if there's a percent in the problem. So if you look, it says this is 40%. So we do have a percent, it's 40. Next, we need to find if we have a part or a whole or a total. Now it says Mr. Jeffrey had 8 students that scored lower than 80 on their test. All right, and this is 40% of the class. So since 40% of the class scored lower than an 80, and we know that 8 students scored lower than an 80, that is going to be our part. And the question's asking how many students are in the class. So we're looking for our whole. So the next thing is we kind of have to label some parts of our percent bar model. So this is always going to be 0 up on the top left, and it's always going to be 0 on the bottom. Okay? Now, 100% always goes up here. Okay? 0 to 100% is always on the top. Percents always go on the top of our bar. The bottom, we need to figure out what we're labeling by because we are looking for our whole. All right? So we're going to put an X there because that's what we're looking for in the end. So if you don't already have some, you need at least 2 different colors, whether it's highlighters, markers, color pencils, crayons, it does not matter. We're going to make what I call our top box. All right, so my strategy for this is top box, bottom box, and we're about to fill in our top box. So to fill in our top box, we pick one of our colors and we start at the 0 on the top. We go all the way to 100, and then we circle or square our model. So after you do that, you look to see how many squares you actually circled around. There are 5 total squares, so we're going to do 100% divided by 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20, 40, 60, 80. 100 divided by 5 is 20, so on the top we are counting by 20s, and these are also percents. So 20%, 40%, 60%, and 80%. Okay? Now, we know that 40% of our kids scored below an 80, and we know that 8 kids scored lower than 80 on their test. So what this tells us is that 40% is 8. So we know that in our percent bar model that we are going to put the 8 below the 40%. Now remember, we are looking for our whole, okay? So since we're looking for our whole, we are not done with our model. So we're going to grab our second color, and we're going to fill in our bottom box. This one's a little different from when we found our part. You start at the 0 with your second color, and you go all the way till you get to your first number. So our first number was 8. So now we're going to square around all the rectangles or boxes like that. Now, how many squares or rectangles did you circle around? 1, 2. So here's what we do. We take this 8 and we divide it by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So we are counting the bottom by 4s. So we have 4, 8, 12, 16, and then 16 plus 4 is 20. So we're looking for our whole, which is our X. We just found our X. So our X equals 20 students in Mr. Jeffrey's class. That is how you use a percent bar model to find the whole when you're given a part and a percent.